All right, looks like I'm recording. Excellent. Okay. Um, want to talk about word economy and wordy sentences. Bring my face back here. All right. Look at this float on this top that way. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so word economy, trimming down wordy sentences. And when we were talking last week on Friday, I gave you a little assignment about quote integration. I pointed out that a good signal phrase is going to be direct. It's going to use the active voice. It's going to avoid using of the verb to be, for example, which can be a little bit more wordy. Often you can choose a verb that's more impactful. So getting away from using the verb to be, getting away from the passive voice strengthens your signal phrases. It's also going to strengthen your writing because you are going to be more direct. You're going to have a little bit more control, and it's going to be less wordy, less tangled. So there's a little exercise here I have for you in which the job is to just make these sentences shorter. So sentence number 1 is 32 words long. And the way that I would hone in on shortening this sentence would be to look at this construction of the verb to be. Okay, I would say that's unnecessary. You could say you could get the same point across by saying lab-raised frogs experience ecological culture shock when released, period. There's a lot of ways you could trim the sentence down, maybe even shorter than this, but here we have 9 words, I think, from 32. It means the exact same thing. You could pause and reread the example if you wanted to. But here again, I'm pointing out that the best way to get started shorting and trimming down this sentence is to go straight into here the use of the verb to be and seeing if you could say it in the same way without relying on the verb to be. The next example, occurrences are rare of smooth frog assimilations into new environments after the decision has been made to free them from controlled conditions. Okay, so again, this is meant to be extra wordy, and your job would be to cut it down. And I'm giving you an example of how to do that. I would hone in here on the to be verb and see if there's a way to get away with that. Also, we've got a passive voice here. Decision has been made. Okay, the decision is not the one acting. The decision is what is being done. So somebody is making the decision. The decision is not making itself. The decision is passive. Therefore, the verb has been made altogether is a passive construction. So you could chop this all apart and say the exact same thing without changing much of the meaning by just going with a clever little move here saying, rarely do frogs assimilate smoothly into new environments. Again, I've done this exercise over the years with a lot of people. There's a lot of ways you could create a shorter version of this 22-word sentence and get it down even shorter. But that's a significant improvement, and that's what I'm asking for. So for the assignment here, I'd like for you to go through numbers 3 through 7 and see how you do shortening those sentences, okay? And I made a few notes here, just pointing out you're going to want to hone in on the appearance of the verb to be here and figure out if there's a way of saying the same thing without using the verb to be. There it is again. There it is again. I'm not marking everything that I'm seeing, but just giving you a few tips. There's actually a few more sentences coming up, and it's kind of a fun, well, no, I think this is the whole exercise. It's fictional, um, and there's a little bit of a joke in it, so I won't give that away. So before I wrap it up here, though, I just want to conclude by just talking a little more about the passive voice, and what that is. It's almost always connected with verbs that are, you might call them action verbs or transitive verbs. Verbs that have a performer or something that is doing the action of the verb, and oftentimes they can have direct objects. That's what makes them transitive. So the action carries to transit, to move across. Tim slices the bread. Okay, the action carries over into the direct object. Okay, that's why it's transitive. Some verbs cannot take direct objects. Verbs that aren't action verbs, verbs that don't involve like doing something to something else, aren't necessarily going to be transitive verbs. This is a little particularity here I'm not going to go too deeply into, but just notice that in this case you have the active voice because Tim is performing the action. Tim is slicing the bread, okay? If you flipped it around, you wouldn't be making a horrible mistake in that it's grammatically correct, it's a complete sentence, it makes sense. But it's just more words, and it's not as direct. Stylistically, it's not going to enhance your writing. So this is what it looks like. You just put the object of the verb, and you put that in make that the subject, and you would have to say the bread was sliced by Tim. So here you're creating a prepositional phrase, and excuse me, you're adding a helping verb here in order to create the passive voice with slice. And bread is not the performer of the action. Bread is receiving the action. Therefore, we do have the passive construction. Again, it's not wrong, but it can be avoided and be a way of making things more direct and less wordy. Now, just one more example. The internet was, let's say, was shut down. That will be a passive construction. You could say, let's say the if we were kind of trying to make it active, we have to know, well, who did the shutting down. Let's say we don't know. Unknown hackers. Maybe in this case, like, it is better, like, we don't have the information in this part, but maybe there's more information that needs to be added. In this case, we're making it up. We're making the performers of the action. Unknown hackers shut down the internet at 11 a.m. or p.m. Now, you might say, well, this looks a little bit longer. Okay, yeah, you're right. But it's also, I wanted to show you what it is like to, well, if I were to put the internet was shut down by unknown hackers, at 11 p.m. Okay, there you have it. That's a lot longer. Anyway, just doing this for the sake of showing you how you can interchange the subjects in order to switch out of passive voice and into active voice. So this is a concept I want us to continue to work with. If you don't quite understand it completely yet, that's okay. We will definitely work more on this. Yeah, I hope this is helpful and gets you through revising these sentences 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.